Hey everybody, bear with me. I'm a little under the weather, and normally I'm on camera every day. I'm just not used to doing so when I'm not feeling well. So this is going to be a first for both of us. So the topic for this discussion post is to select a historical figure for American history until 1877 and do some research to get an idea of their historical background and importance. So I chose almost a cliche figure. Normally for something like this, I would choose someone a little more obscure and point out what they did contribute. But for this, I chose Thomas Jefferson, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Thomas Jefferson, his parents were Peter Randolph and Jane. His parents were Peter Jefferson and Jane Randolph. Peter Jefferson and James Randolph are my great grandparents. I have direct lineage. Thomas Jefferson's younger brother, Randolph Jefferson, is my sixth great grandfather. So we've always had kind of an interest in him through the family lineage, and I've got a lot of resources about it, a lot of books. But a lot of people understand that he was a diplomat, he was a statesman, he was a president. But I don't think a lot of people understand how much he shaped the role and the path of early America behind the scenes. For example, we all know that he was the primary author for the Declaration of Independence. But before that, we don't know about the summary rights, a view of the summary rights of British America. And this was a big deal at the time. This was 1774. We were still very much under the king. We weren't trying to separate. There were people who wanted to. There were grumblings. But, talking about that kind of thing would still get you, so that's not a good thing. But it offered, it talked about several things. It talked about colonists' natural rights. So it said that colonists are not subjects of Parliament, but are subjects of the king. So they said, hey, we don't want to secede from the monarchy. Okay, we accept monarchy rule. We accept the rule of the king. But Parliament does not represent us. Parliament should not be able to legislate over us. And, here we come with one of the most important facets from the American Revolution, which was no taxation without representation, because the Parliament kept slapping taxes on the American colonies because they were a cash cow. They also offered. Why do I keep saying offered? They also demanded a right to self-government, again being under the king, but essentially establishing their own parliamentary authority. They called for colonists to stand together in defense of these, and they called for being able to criticize the king. That was a big deal. If you criticized the king, way back then, it was all bad for you. But Thomas Jefferson was also the governor of Virginia during the Revolutionary War. And that in itself was a big deal because Virginia today is a big state. But Virginia was huge because it encompassed us, West Virginia. And they were basically a powerhouse of influence and authority in the colonial times. But I think the biggest thing that he brought to the table was being a symbol of the Enlightenment movement. So he often credited Thomas Bacon, John Locke, and Sir Isaac Newton as being the three greatest men who ever lived, because he was a staunch Christian, but he also firmly believed that religion has its place and science has its place, and they shouldn't encroach upon one another. And he believed in the foundations of science and logic, right? He also believed that an educated citizenry was the foundation for a strong democracy. So he was a firm believer in education, in the population being educated, which is why he founded the University of Virginia. And not only did he found the University of Virginia, he founded it as a secular institution without religious overtones, which were found in most of your colleges of the day. They were a religious institution first and an institution of higher learning second. So he founded the University of Virginia to teach people in a purely secular manner how to think. Not what to think, how to think. But also, let's get more into his writings, and he went beyond the Declaration of Independence. And take the Constitution, for example. Okay, Jefferson didn't write the Constitution, but the Constitution is arguably the most important document in U.S. history, arguably outside the Declaration of Independence. Within that Constitution, or part of it, as in toto, the First Amendment is arguably the most important part of the Constitution. That was drawn directly from, excuse me, I have to check my notes, but that was drawn directly from what Thomas Jefferson wrote as the Virginia's Statute for Religious Freedom in 1786. That statute became the model of what became the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. And it said basically essentially what the First Amendment says, that the government cannot and will not encroach on your religious freedom or your ability to choose and practice a religion. You can do so with impunity. The government will not hurt you. Now, Thomas Jefferson did kind of fall into a situation where he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was not the eldest Jefferson son, but his older brother did pass away at a younger age. He was born into a wealthy Virginia family. They were planters, had a lot of money, a lot of influence, and they were in several spheres of influence. So from the get-go, he had the right connections. And could he have done what he did without those connections? You know, that's arguable. That's academic. But in any case, he did take what he was given, and he played the hand that he was given. So not only did this man, become a diplomat, become a Secretary of State, become the President of the United States, he used his ideals and beliefs to form and guide how the United States became the United States. And I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that the United States as we know it today would be vastly different without Thomas Jefferson's ideological and secular influence and his focus on enlightened reasoning. So there you have it. That is my 5 to 7 minute, 7.5 minute report on Thomas Jefferson's important role in history. And I hope you enjoyed. And no matter what else you do, spread love today. Be good people.